So this afternoon, Jurassic Park or Jesus, and it's got a subtitle to it, Who Knows More? So let me ask you guys that question, Jurassic Park or Jesus, who knows more? You know, it's interesting that when I get in conversations with Christians and I ask them that question, they'll always answer with Jesus. I mean, it's like Sunday school test. Question, Jesus, oh, yes. But here's the challenge. When you start engaging people and asking them specific questions about dinosaurs and those types of things, you know what happens most of the time? We answer with a Jurassic Park mentality. We may say Jesus with our lips, but with our minds, we've been taught to think through a Jurassic Park mentality. So that's why I kind of like taking their stuff, watch it, deal with it. By the way, just so you know, I have found the world's most accurate pie chart. The world's most accurate pie chart, okay? Pie I have eaten, pie that I will eat, okay. Just to start off. So Jurassic Park or Jesus, who knows more? How many of you have seen any one of the Jurassic Park videos? And there's a bunch of them. Okay, so we have a few hands that didn't go up. I'm shocked. You Christians watching that evolution New Age filled movie, how in the world can you call yourself a Christian for watching that stuff? Now, I went for research purposes only. I did not enjoy it. I was strictly gleaning so that I could communicate with you. And that's a lie. I love that kind of stuff, all right? I do, all right? For those of you that have not seen a Jurassic Park, I'm going to show you a synopsis of the first, I think it's the first four Jurassic Parks in 30 seconds. You ready? Here you go. Jurassic Park in 30 seconds.
And there's no doubt our attractions will drive kids out of their minds.
It could have been worse, John.
I just saved you an hour and a half of your life, okay? So now you're caught up and you know where we're headed. We're going to take these clips, video clips, and we're going to deal with them, but let's get set up before we head into it. Romans 12:2 is a verse that I want to key off of because, again, Scripture should be the place we always start. And don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I'm going to say that I feel like too many times my problem is that I am being conformed and not transformed. Yes, I watch these movies, I do. I use them for conversation pieces, but I also have to be very careful because many times they're having an impact on me and I'm not even aware of it. And so just be aware that these things are there, they're communicating a message, and we need to be careful with them. But before we can really get in and start evaluating these clips, let's talk just briefly about science. What is science? Because we can't evaluate the clips if we don't have a common language, all right? I got saved in Salt Lake City, Utah. You know there's a group that uses the exact same terminology that we may have, but they have different meanings for words, right? It's a big issue even in our world today. We can say the same words but have totally different meanings. When I say science, I have a very specific meaning. Well, so do those that don't believe in God. And that's why yesterday I gave you guys a free tool, the app. 1828 Dictionary. Download it. It's free of charge. It's not Sunday morning, so you can take your smartphones and your smart devices out now. Oh, did you bring them after this morning's talk? I still have mine, but bring it out. Go to your app store and type in 1828 Dictionary because it's a great app. And it's the original Noah Webster Dictionary is free. Type in words in there. Because words have meaning, and the word science has meaning, but it has changed over time. So let's just understand what we're talking about here. Science, what is it? It's knowledge. That's essentially all science is. It's knowledge. How do you gain the knowledge? Through the scientific method, okay? So it's knowledge that's been gained through scientific method. I'm all for that. I'm in agreement with that. If you go to a biology text today, though, the goal of science is to investigate and understand the natural world, to explain events in the natural world, and to use those explanations to make useful predictions. Science deals only with the natural world Go to the 1828 dictionary. You're not going to see this whole natural thing thrown at you. You're going to see that they talked about God. What happened? Well, as Christians remove themselves from the culture, it has been replaced with a different worldview. And that's what we see going on. Here's another earth science. The goal of science is to explain natural phenomena. Scientists ask questions about natural events. Behavior of natural forces can be anticipated. What's up with all of this? Natural. Science and evolution versus creation. In science, explanations must be based on naturally occurring phenomena. Why? Because those who control the vocabulary control. That's why you need to have the understanding of words. Science, let me take you to the 1828 dictionary. This is what it says in the 1828 dictionary. In general, science, knowledge, or certain knowledge, a comprehension of or understanding of truth or facts by the mind, the science of God must be perfect. Did you catch that? What happened? When you remove yourself from an environment, from a culture, if Christianity is removed, it will be replaced with something. By the way, scientific method. What is the scientific method? Come on. You guys know this. You know the scientific method. It's pretty simple. It's knowledge, or it's a scientific method is based on gathering observable, empirical, measurable evidence. By the way, can you give me an example of a worm growing legs, crawling onto land to become an amphibian, to turn into a rat, to turn into a wolf, to go back into the ocean, to become a blue whale? Evolution is not based on science. It is based on philosophy. It is based on belief. Scientific method can't give you that information. It's not there. It's just not there. And it goes on to say this about the scientific method. Scientific researchers propose a specific hypothesis, they design experimental studies, test the predictions, and then they repeat it, right? Go back to our textbooks in the schools. Science requires repeatable observations and testable hypotheses. Evolution can't do that. So just hang on to that and remember that. We don't have a science problem, we have a worldview problem. So the scientific method, just to make sure we got this, you ask a question, you do some research, you come up with a hypothesis, you test it with an experiment. Based on what happens, it can be true or it can be partially true or not true. And then what do? Well, if it's partially true or not true, come back up here, try again, and do the whole sequence. This process is amazing. And by the way, it originated in the Christian mindset. Do you know who came up with the scientific method? I told y'all yesterday. A creationist. Sir Francis Bacon. You can laugh at his name, but he's the guy that came up with the scientific method, all right? And the reason he came up with it is because he said, look, if you want to understand the Creator, study the creation, because if the Creator made it, his attributes will be in what he made. Science originated in the Christian mindset. So now remember that as we go into these clips here. So worldview is the issue. Dinosaurs aren't the problem. What we have going on is you have people with a certain bias looking at these things, coming in with a certain interpretation. Somebody else coming along with a different bias, different interpretation. I'm telling you right now, I'm biased. I'm 100% biased. I'm 1,000% biased. My bias is the Bible is true. So when I look at Jurassic Park, when I look at bones and I take you out to dig dinosaur bones, I see those things through the lens of my worldview. And you better believe I come to a different conclusion than somebody who says there is no God given enough time. Right circumstances. Things just happen. There's two types of science. Empirical observational science, that's the one that's based on test, repeat, verify. That's the one that created really cool things like Macintosh computers. If we didn't have any Macs and there were only PCs, evolution may have had a shot. But I digress. And then there's historical science, and historical science is a belief about the past. It's not based on evidence. It's not based on believe, test, repeat, verify. It's based on what you think about the past. And so keep those two things in mind as we start going here, okay? Observational science, test, repeat, verify. Historical science, one-time events on Earth are outside of science, okay? Notice my jab? Okay. So, when we do this, let's apply it to the first clip. No audio in this first clip. We're just going to watch the clip. And let me point out some things to you, and we'll try and get it going. Do we know, observational science, that Mama T-Rex was nudging baby T-Rex? Do we know that the stegosaurs moved in herds? Do we know the 50-foot-long wingspan of the pterodactyls could come and gently land on the branch? 50-foot wingspans. But when you see this, it makes it real. And that's the challenge. That's why when you watch, critically evaluate what you're watching, because they have a message that they are trying to communicate. I have a message I'm trying to communicate. They just have a whole lot more money to do their presentations than I do. Okay? So let's take the first clip, listen for observational science, statements based on observational science, and statements based on historical science.
Dinosaurs and man, two species separated by 65 million years of evolution.
Okay, so let's break this down. Dinosaurs and man, separated by 65 million years of evolution. Is that a statement that's based on observational science, or is that a statement based on historical science? You know, it's an interesting thing. Almost every book that you buy in dinosaurs always includes a chart like this. Millions of years ago, you got a hot molten blob. Where'd the hot molten blob come from? Don't have a clue. But we got a hot molten blob. That hot molten blob cooled down over millions of years and got water on it. How do you get a planet that's 75% covered with water, and there's more water subterranean than there is on the surface, from a hot molten blob cooling down? Don't worry about it. It happened. And then over time, inside that water, you got an amoeba, and that amoeba turned into a worm, and that worm turned into a fish, and that fish turned into an amphibian to crawl out of the land to become, I know you're sick of hearing that example. But that's exactly what it says, all right? So this thing turns into this thing, turns into this thing to come out. How does that happen on a hot molten blob that cooled down? And by the way, where did the hot molten blob come from? Don't worry about it. It happened. And unfortunately, I do have to admit, I have found evidence for this process. I have. That's not real. That's Photoshop. Now, if you found something like that, I would be a little bit nervous. But we haven't, so I feel okay. All right? But that's what we should expect to find, quite frankly, if that process did happen. So, let's jump into this. Dinosaurs and man separated by 65 million years of evolution. That is absolutely based on historical science. There's no test, repeat, verify that you can do to verify that. It's a belief system. Now, how about this one? What did they need to get the dinosaurs for Jurassic Park? Other than, to pretend it was real, okay? I know it's not, but pretend it is. What did they need to create the dinosaurs to put in Jurassic Park? What did they need? DNA. Very important. Let's hear what they say about DNA.
Just one drop of your blood contains billions of strands of DNA, the building blocks of life. A DNA strand, like me, is a blueprint for building a living thing. And sometimes animals that went extinct millions of years ago, like dinosaurs, left their blueprints behind for us to find. We just had to know where to look.
Okay, let's break them down. A lot of statements here. First one. One drop of blood contains billions of strands of DNA. Is that based on observational science or historical science? What? You sure? This is one of the greatest tools to use with somebody. They give you the right answer and you just look at them. What? Man, you had the right answer. Be bold. Yeah. You can test, repeat, verify. We got DNA. We can check it out. We can test it. We can see it. I do this with kids all the time. I'll ask a question, they answer it, and I'll look at them weird. What? And you can just see people shrinking. We got to be bolder than that. Is it based on observational science or historical science? Yeah, you can test, repeat, verify that. No argument. How about this one? DNA is a building block of life. You can test that? Repeat, verify? Sure, absolutely, no problem. DNA is a blueprint for a living thing. Yeah? Okay. All right. How about this one? How about this? Animals went extinct millions of years ago. Do you see the difference? One, we can test, repeat, verify. One is a belief about the past. You can't test, repeat, verify that. You can't. There's no way to do it. All right? But here's one of Satan's effective tools. I'll give you 99% of the truth. But let me give you 1% of the lie. And we equate the two to be the same. They're not the same. You can't do both of those things the same way. And by the way, the DNA, where did they find the DNA to recreate the dinosaurs? You can just yell it out. The mosquito, where was the mosquito? In the amber. Why is that important? Very important. When this movie first came out, I was an air traffic controller at Salt Lake, and they had already threatened to fire me for proselytizing. So I had to get creative in the way that I did things. I had to get people to ask me questions. Because once somebody asked me a question, dude, all bets are off. You ask me, I am free to go. So when this movie came out, I walked in and tried this sometime. Do you realize that the movie Jurassic Park shows scientifically that the dinosaurs did not die millions of years ago? Say what? Thanks for asking. Here we go. Hey man, you asked. He asked. This was extremely important. Now here's why. They found the mosquito inside the amber. Why did they need that? Let me get to it, but watch this, watch this.
100 million years ago, there were mosquitoes, just like today.
Okay, think about this. 100 million years ago, based on observational or historical science, mosquitoes were just like today, observational or historical. If you find a mosquito in a piece of amber, is it the same as a mosquito that we find today? Yeah. Mosquitoes have always been mosquitoes. I mean, that's what it shows. Mosquitoes have always been mosquitoes. Why this big, what's up with this, mosquitoes are just like today anyway? Do you understand that when you look in the fossil record, we see things today that are in the fossil record that they date by, and I don't agree with these dates, but they date them to be 100, 200, 300, 400 million years old, and they're exactly the same as what we see today? Okay, I kind of wonder about this. I just want to go back 20 years. I looked a whole lot better 20 years ago, okay? How does something get to this point and then say, hey, that's it, I'm not changing anymore, I'm going to stay the same for 100, 200, 300 million years? Dude, I just want 20 years. That's not greedy. How about this? You don't see the changes because they never changed. Now, we do find things in the fossil record that aren't alive today, but that doesn't mean anything other than animals are dying out. Extinction is a reality. But turtles have always been turtles, snakes have always been snakes, dragonflies have always been dragonflies, horseshoe crabs have always been horseshoe crabs, and alligators. That's what the fossil record shows. So that's why they look just like today. It's called the living fossil. What you see in the fossil record is consistent with what we see in the world today. So how did we get this mosquito? He sucked the blood of the dinosaur. He lands on the tree sap comes down, covers him up, hardens, and millions of years later, voila, you got yourself the mosquito with the DNA in it. They drill in, they take it out. Great. What's that got to do with anything on millions of years, Carl? Thank you for asking. DNA is self-destructing, right? It's breaking down. If DNA is exposed to oxygen or water, it breaks down very quickly. You had to find a mechanism to protect the DNA from oxygen and water. What was the mechanism? Amber. I mean, amber is just great medium for preserving stuff. It's waterproof, and when you get water out of a system, you have very little degradation. So this was the claim. They had to get the DNA inside the amber, so the amber protected the DNA from the oxygen in the water to destroy it. Well, guess what? Let's evaluate that claim. Does amber protect DNA from oxygen and water? Water, yes. We can test that. Oxygen? Ooh, no. It cannot. Matter of fact, they did the test, and here's what they found. They took a piece of this amber, and inside there they have air bubbles. And they drill in and they extract the oxygen and say, oh, we know what the climate was like 60 million years ago. Problem is, they took that same piece of amber, drilled in, took another air bubble out, and they tested it again, but this was after they had placed that same piece of amber inside of a container and introduced something new called propane. Have you ever heard of propane? Propane molecules are larger than oxygen molecules. So they put the amber in the container, introduced the propane, took the amber out, drilled in, took another air bubble out. What was in the air bubble this time that wasn't in there the first time? Propane. What are the implications? If propane is passing through amber, what else is passing through amber? Oxygen. You find DNA inside of a mosquito, inside of amber, it's been exposed to oxygen. It is impossible for it to be millions of years old. Matter of fact, even if it had amber and it was airproof, it still can't be millions of years. DNA is so self-destructing that the best storage method is to freeze it, to cryogenetically store it. If you do that, it won't last 100,000 years. DNA will not last 100,000 years at the most. By the way, if oxygen had diffused in and out of the amber, the genetic material would have been history. So, you find DNA, period. I don't care where you find it. Guess what? It's not millions of years old. It can't be. It can't last that long. So this whole belief, the statement that amber will protect DNA from oxygen and water, hey, maybe it will protect it from one, but it won't the other. But it doesn't protect the DNA. How about this? DNA, blood vessels, bone and tissue, organic material. It can last millions of years? Do you think bone can last millions of years without rotting? Blood vessels? Let me take you to an Ape to Man history show. Take a listen to what they say. They were looking at a skull that they found, and they drilled in, and something interesting happened.
Scientists decide to apply some newly available chemical tests. But as soon as a sample is drilled from the jawbone, they notice something strange. A distinct smell of burnt flesh. This can only come from organic bone, not fossil. So the jaw cannot be more than a few thousand years old.
Okay? Organic material can't be more than a few thousand years old. Flesh, if it's flesh, can't be more than a few thousand years old, right? Watch.
What happened next happened by mistake. Mary put some fragments of the bone in acid to dissolve away the outermost layer of mineral. But the acid worked too fast and all the mineral dissolved away. Being a fossil, there should have been nothing left. But there was. And it was elastic, like living tissue.
This is the piece.
No. She showed us video she took under the microscope.
That's really what happened?
Yes.
That's the dinosaur bone?
Without mineral now. That's what was left.
It looked like the soft tissue she would have expected to find if it had been modern bone. This was impossible. This bone was 68 million years old.
So they take dinosaur bone, introduce some chemicals to take off the calcification on the outside, and guess what is left over? Flesh. Flesh can't last millions of years. Organic material can't last millions of years. This is dinosaur flesh. Watch.
So you see this and you think, what?
You're a scientist. You love science. Your goal is to find truth. You have just discovered something that changes everything that we have known. You have discovered the truth about, we've been wrong on everything, but we now know the truth. What's going to be your response? And you see this and you think, how would you answer that? Do you want people to know about it? Would you be like, man, let me tell you what I found, right? Would you think like that? What did she think like?
You say,
I didn't want to tell anybody.
I didn't want to tell anybody? You've just found like this groundbreaking truth and you don't want to tell anybody. Why? Listen.
You'd be ridiculed,
Yes.
right?
And so I said to my technician, okay, do it again. I don't believe it.
And yet, in sample after sample, they were there. Things that looked suspiciously like flexible, transparent blood vessels. she finally mustered the courage to tell Jack.
She said she dissolved the bone away and there were blood vessels. And, you know, I was like shocked. I mean,
How could that be?
How could that be? That's right.
You know what's interesting in this whole interview? You can go watch it on YouTube, get the whole thing. One question was never asked. What question do you think would have been a fair one to ask? What do you think? Yeah, how old do you really think it has to be millions of years old? But wouldn't the evidence support that it's not millions of years old? Oh, no, 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 no. We never questioned that. Because everybody knows it's millions of years old. We do? Then how come you got flesh? How come you got red blood cells? How come you got blood vessels? How come you have bone, dinosaur bone, that is not mineralized at all? Matter of fact, where we dug the, where I take people to dig the dinosaur bones, 2 years ago when I filmed that WMI DVD that's out there, as we were going, we found a petrified log that's embedded in the Hell Creek Formation. Hell Creek Formation is 68 to 70 million years old, according to the evolutionary model. Petrified log, in the center, it's 100% petrified, top's about 95% petrified. I literally flipped this log over, and there's like 1.5 inches of wood. It's wood. You can burn it. It's still wood. How does wood last 68 to 70 million years and not rot? And this thing is embedded in the Hell Creek Formation. Maybe it's not 68 to 70 million years old. Never asked.
The things Mary was finding inside dinosaur bones,
Look at that.
blood vessels, and even what seemed to be intact cells, pose a radical challenge to the existing rules of science, that organic material can't possibly survive even 1 million years, let alone 68 million.
You want evidence that the dinosaurs didn't live millions of years ago? You're looking at it. Red blood cells, blood vessels, flesh, and dinosaur bone that's not petrified. Watch.
Mary, Jack, and their team published their B-Rex findings in a series of papers in the journal Science and were promptly attacked. Critics said their samples might have been contaminated, or that the supposed blood vessels were actually something called biofilm, a type of slime.
Not true at all. They've done a whole lot more research since this was done. Totally shown to be blood vessels, blood cells, and flesh. And by the way, they are finding these things in almost every dinosaur bone now. Almost every dinosaur bone they're testing, they're finding this stuff. So the big thing is, how do you explain this? Mary Schweitzer doesn't like, she's the lady that discovered these stuff, she's a Christian, and she doesn't like the fact that people like me use her research to support the fact that dinosaurs didn't die out millions of years ago. So here's what I figured I would do. I will let her talk to you because there's only two options that this evidence can support. I'll let her tell you. It was exactly like looking at a slice of modern bone, but of course I couldn't believe it. I said to the lab technician, the bones, after all, are 65 million years old. How could blood cells survive that long? Here's your two options to explain how. So that leaves us with two alternatives for interpretation. Either the dinosaurs aren't as old as we think they are, or maybe we don't know exactly how these things get preserved. Which one makes the most sense? There's some unknown storage mechanism that can allow organic material to last 68, 70 million years. Oh, by the way, they also find 80 million year old dinosaur blood vessels. Or maybe it's not that old. I'll leave that in your hand. I'm not going to tell you which way to believe. That's a decision that you've got to make. But those are your two alternatives. So in all deference to Mary Schweitzer, I'll give you both options. You got to make that final decision. But to me, everything that you look at, every scientific test that's ever been done shows that this stuff, observational science, cannot last millions of years. Impossible. There's no mechanism that allows it. How about this dinosaur? Remember Dilophosaurus? Remember Dilophosaurus?
Dilophosaurus. One of the earliest carnivores, we now know Dilophosaurus is actually poisonous, spitting its venom at its prey, causing blindness and eventually paralysis, allowing the carnivore to eat at its leisure. This makes Dilophosaurus a beautiful but deadly addition to Jurassic Park.
Sorry, got to get a little of the gross stuff in there. Dilophosaurus, one of the earliest carnivores. Is that a statement based on observational science or historical science? Do we really know what that thing ate? I mean, It's based on historical science. We don't know. How about this one? It was able to spit venom. Is that observational or historical science? You sure? They didn't find a fossilized venom spitter? No, they didn't. This was from Chicago Field Museum. Did Dilophosaurus really spit poison? Probably not. Poison doesn't fossilize, of course. There's no way to prove that it didn't, but there's absolutely no evidence to suggest that it did either. So that's absolutely based on historical science, something we think about the past. How about this? How about this one? It was a frilled dinosaur. It had the ooh. Did we find a fossilized frill? Made it look cool in the movie, but there's no evidence for it. Beautiful but deadly. How do we know? Historical. Listen. This is going to be a little loud bump here, so hang on. But listen carefully.
Don't move. Can't see us if we don't move.
Sorry, I don't know what happened to the voice there. Don't move. They can't see us if you don't move. Anybody else kind of noticing what I'm noticing? I'm like, dude, forget about seeing. If he can't smell you from that close, seriously? Everything that's taught about T-Rex is T-Rex was like the greatest scavenger ever. It was not a hunter, it was not a predator, because those little tiny arms wouldn't help it too much with that sort of a thing. So it found dead things that other things had killed, and it could smell them from miles away. It had huge nose, olfactory, however they call that stuff, big nose openings, right? So this thing could smell dead things from miles away. What do you think about this? Don't move. He can't see us if we don't move. Is that based on observational science or historical science? They don't have a fossilized eyeball? No, that's historical science. Why did they say it though? What are the implications of don't move? He can't see us if we don't move. This is why.
They're moving in herds. They do move in herds.
This is a spiritual moment, by the way. This was spiritual. They move in herds. How about this one? How about this one?
Wheeling uniform direction changes, just like a flock of birds evading a predator.
And this one. And I'm sorry. This whole movement in flocks and herds. What's that got to do with anything? Listen to this one.
Hammond's check cleared. Or I wouldn't be going on this wild goose chase.
Where you're going is the only place in the world where the geese chase you.
You get it? You catch it? One more.
Well, hello there. What are you? Is it a bird or something?
Forgive me. You and I, we're on a deserted beach, and we're walking down the beach. And this thing pops out at us. And the first thing that runs through my head is, oh, what are you, a bird or something? You got these big old honking legs, you got this big old tail, and you got rinky-dinky little arms, and there's not a feather on this thing, and oh, it's a bird. This is not a science issue. This is a belief issue. Why all this bird stuff? Why at the very end of the first movie does he look out and see the pelicans and have peace? Because you see, the dinosaurs are still here. They evolved into the birds. That's the whole teaching. That's one of the core teachings of the whole Jurassic Park series. The dinosaurs are still here. They're just the birds. So let's deal with it. Dinosaurs evolving into birds, it's taught everywhere. I mean, they go to the Chicago Field Museum. There it is. There's the chart. There's the chart. And here's another chart in the Encyclopedia Britannica. Start here. You get reptiles, reptile, bird, bird. Cincinnati Zoo. Here's how the birds evolved from the reptiles. The running reptile changed over time, changed, slowly, gradually over millions of years, changed. The scale got roughed up, turned into a feather. the big legs shrank, the little arms grew, and you got a bird. That's the video at the Cincinnati Zoo, okay? I should show this to you. I'm going to do it. Forgive me. ADD. I'm telling you, it's a gift when it works. I got to show this to you. I need to put this in this talk. I hadn't really thought about it till just now. Boom. Genius. Have you ever seen this chart? No. This chart is called the path to birds. Have any of you ever seen this chart? This is a secular chart explaining how you start over here, and given enough time, you get the birds, okay? I do a class on critical thinking, right? Online class, and I found this. And the guy that filmed the class, I went out, he lives in Boise, and I flew into Boise, and I wanted to explain to him what I was trying to accomplish in the class, because this isn't like dry lecture stuff. I want this give and take and all that sort of a thing. And so we made a meeting. He got a buddy's house to let us meet at. They're not Christians. And he told me this on the way. Oh, Carl, they're not Christians. I said, hey, that's fine with me. Look, I'm not offended by that. I mean, we're here to talk to people that don't believe the same as us. And so we show up in the house. The young man that opens the house was a young man named Dennis, about 16 years old, smart mouth kid. I mean, smart mouth, all right? He opens the door. Hey, Dennis, da-da-da-da-da, smart mouth comment. I know how to deal with smart mouth. I am one. And so we have our smart mouth moments back and forth. And then he goes into the kitchen, and it's an open living room, and I'm sitting in there with Matt and his wife, and I'm explaining the video that I'm trying to do and the illustration that I want to use. And he's bird dogging. You know what I'm saying? He's sitting over there bird dogging, listening to us. And so finally I said, Matt, let me show you what I'm talking about. Hey, Dennis. Yeah. Well, you want to come over and be my guinea pig? Yeah, come on over. All right, Dennis. This is the path to birds. The path to birds. I'm reading that correctly, right? Yes, you are. Okay. What does this depict, Dennis? Well, that over time, the dinosaurs evolved into the birds. Oh, okay, Dennis. Now, I'm a nice guy, so here's my assignment for you today. I want you to go. Oh, you're not a nice guy. You're giving me assignments. I'm a nice guy. I'll help you with the assignment, okay? I want you to go and find. I'm going to give you all the names, all right? I'm giving you all the names. I want you to go and research all the names that I'm giving to you, and I want you to come back with 2 pieces of information. Number 1, how old are they according to the evolutionary model? Number 2, what was the actual evidence to support each one of those? Could you do it? Yes. Okay, because I'm really nice, I'm not going to make you do it. I'm just going to show you what you're going to find. Don't believe me? Go check me out. Sinosauropteryx, all right? According to the evolutionary model, how old is it? Well, it's 124.5 million years. Velociraptor, 75 million years. Unalasia, 90 million years, 124.5. Okay, Dennis, do you notice anything interesting? Well, yeah, it's not in sequence. Okay, Dennis, let's put it in sequence according to the dates that you're going to find. Dennis, does this show you that the dinosaurs evolved into the birds? Well, no. What's it show you? That Jurassic Park lied to me, and I'm very upset. I said, Dennis, you just passed the class. Guys, this is their evidence how a dinosaur evolved into the bird. Notice it. This is fully bird, and it's older, 150 million years, than the one that supposedly evolved into it. How do you get the grandchild living before the grandkids without some sort of a time machine? Guys, when you look critically at this stuff, I'm telling you, you got nothing. That's free with the price of admission. Sorry, just bunny trail moment. So what about the whole scale evolving into a feather thing? I got a dear buddy, man, Dave Minton, love this guy. He does a talk on how birds evolve feathers, and there's 2 explanations. One, they started up in the trees and they grew feathers so they could fly down, and the other was they grew feathers on the ground so they could chase bugs and scare the bugs in front of them and eat them. And they used the feathers to scare the bugs in front of them. He did a test on that. You got to hear this.
I took a piece of tissue paper and tied it to a thread from a rafter in my basement. And then I put on the styrofoam wings. And I snuck up on the tissue paper. And I took my wings and I did that. Do you have any idea what happened? I mean, I can't believe this. This piece of tissue paper, not a speck of life in it, and it flew away.
That's one of the explanations. They grew the feathers so they could scare the bugs in front of them and eat. You're done, man. You're starving to death. It's not going to work, okay? This whole feathered dinosaur thing, I mean, it blew up with National Geographic. Oh, theropods. We can now say that they are birds or theropods just as confidently as we can say humans or mammals. The missing link, we have it. We even had a picture of baby T-Rex with downy feathers. I went to see Deinonychus with feathers in Chicago, Navy Pier, dinosaur exhibit. Thousands of people walking through there, Deinonychus with feathers. One father had 3 boys, and he's standing there, and he's looking at this, boys, come here. This is my favorite dinosaur. I never knew it existed. Would you like to see the actual evidence for dinosaurs with feathers? Deinonychus specifically? Would you like to see the actual evidence? I can skip it. Okay, I'm going to show it to you. That's it. That's the evidence for Deinonychus with feathers. The only way they got feathers on it is they glued them on. When you go to the museum and you see Deinonychus with feathers, there's 2 problems with it. Number 1, Deinonychus, hold up. Birds existed before them. It doesn't work, and there's no evidence for the birds with feathers. Guys, I don't know, I'm sorry. I get frustrated with this stuff. Hair, scale, fur, feathers of all the body coverings nature has designed, nature did what? Designed? Nature doesn't design anything, designers design things. Feathers are the most various and most mysterious. How did these incredibly strong, wonderfully lightweight, amazing, intricate appendages evolve? Where did they come from? Only in the past 5 years have we begun to answer this question. Several lines of research have recently converged on a remarkable conclusion. The feather evolved in dinosaurs before the appearance of birds. Second, paleontologists have unearthed a trove of feathered dinosaurs in China. Really? Go study. Go study this. Let me see. Is this the right one? Nope, it's not this one. I'm trying to skip some stuff here. How about this one? Is that it? Oh yeah, treasure trove of feathered dinosaurs. Let's go. A February 19, 2000 New Scientist article sheds light on the growing problem of faked and altered fossils. Referring to the Chinese fossil birds, paleontologist Craig Derstler from the University of New Orleans in Louisiana says, almost every one that I've seen on the commercial market has some reconstruction to make it look prettier. All that treasure trove of feathered dinosaurs that they supposedly found? Oh no. It's a mess. And by the way, when they tell you, scientists say this, these structures seem quite different. A scale, a fold in the skin, scale, reptile, scale, and a feather of a bird, they're very similar. The differences in reality are not very great. Am I reading that correctly? And then I read this, feather, horny outgrowth to the skin, peculiar to birds, similar in structure and origin to the scales of fish and reptiles. Really? Let me show you a scale. This is a scale. Let's flip it over. A scale is a fold in the skin. Let's dig down just a little bit. This is a scale, a fold in the skin, okay? This, according to the evolutionary model, got roughed up and over millions of years turned into a feather. So this is a scale and this is a feather. I went too quickly. You couldn't see the difference. Let's go back. Let's do it slowly. This is a scale, over millions of years, gets roughed up, slowly, gradually gets roughed up and turns into a feather. There's nothing similar between these two things. A feather is more like a hair. It grows out of the body. It's a complex structure. You ever had to pluck any chickens? Dude, it's not a fold in the skin. You got to pull those jokers out, right? My job was to pull the pin feathers out after Granny killed them and boiled them. And I couldn't eat chicken for years, man. Just that, I couldn't. Killed me, all right? But I want you to think about this. A feather, gentlemen, ingrown hairs in the neck, you know what I'm talking about? You got to get the needle and pull them out. No fun, right? Can you imagine a chicken with an ingrown feather? Not a pretty thought. Why doesn't that happen for the most part? Because you see, it's an amazing stroke of luck. Over millions of years, as that scale got roughed up and started to grow out of the body like a hair, it developed a shell around that feather. So underneath the skin, there's a shell around the feather. The feather grows inside the shell. But now we have a problem, because the shell grows with the feather. What's the problem? You can't fly with a porcupine quill, can you? No. I'll tell you the answer. You got to get rid of the shell. How do you get rid of the shell? It's an amazing stroke of luck. There's an enzyme at the skin level that the chicken produces to eat the shell so the feather can open and the bird can fly. And that came from a fold in the skin. Guys, you look at a feather, God invented it. It's Velcro. We ripped them off. We put it on shoes and pants and shirt. It's Velcro. When you magnify the Lord, there's little hooks and there's barbs. These things, if they don't fit exactly right, a bird doesn't fly. It's Velcro. When you measure down and look at this stuff under an electron microscope, and for it being similar, there's nothing similar. How about this one, though? How about this one?
God creates dinosaurs. God destroys dinosaurs. God creates man. Man destroys God. Man creates dinosaurs.
Let's deal with it. Observational or historical science. God creates dinosaurs. Observational or historical? I love doing this. I'm a frustrated teacher wannabe. Can you test, repeat, verify it? No, it's a belief system. It's a belief about the past. It's historical science. But everything that we see in the world, is it consistent with a God creating or gas creating? See? We both have belief. We both have faith. All you have is faith. So do you. We both do. But what we see in the world, is it consistent with God or is it consistent with gas? That's a decision I put in your hands. How about this one? God destroys dinosaurs. It's historical. They were destroyed, but I can't test, repeat, verify it. God creates man. It's historical. Everything that we see inside the human body screams that there has to be an intelligence. I mean, the processes by which we breathe. I mean, I wish I had time to go through the lungs. Do you know? No, I can't go there. It's cool. Mucus is awesome. Talk to me about mucus when we have time. Man destroys God, historical science. Man creates dinosaurs. Man, if we could ever get to that stage, it would be observational. We haven't done it yet. It could be cool. Dinosaur eats man. Wouldn't be so good, but we could, if it happened, we could see it. Gentlemen, young men, hear me. I'm old. I have learned some things in life. Leave it alone. It is not worth it. Move on down the road, brother. Come on, Carl, it's just a movie. Jurassic Park, it's a movie. No, it's a tool that is being used to teach a worldview. Will I go see the new Jurassic World or whatever it's called that's coming out? Yes, I will be there. Because I'm going to look for clips that I can use in the new talk to update this one. And I also enjoy it. I'm not going to lie to you. But I understand what it is. It's science fiction. Here's one of the true, I think this is probably the biggest message of Jurassic Park. Listen, please.
And if we could only step aside and trust in nature, life will find a way.
Trust in nature. Step aside. Life will find a way. That's not what God says. God says we trust in the living God. If you put your trust in nature, if you think you can fully understand God from nature, from his creation, here's the problem. What we live in today is suffering from 1,000 years of the curse. Yes, there's beauty. We can see some really cool stuff, but then we see some really ugly stuff. Why? Because what we are seeing has been destroyed by sin. We destroyed what he gave us. There's still that picture. You can see both of them. But if you're going to put your faith and trust in what you see around us, it's not going to work. You trust in the living God. And it goes on to say that Jesus says unto him, I am the way. Nature's not the way. He's the way. He's the truth. He's the life. And none of us can get there except through him. Look, I like these movies as tools to use to get conversations going, okay? So, maybe that's an idea for you. Parents, I'm telling you the way that I did it with my children. I would do the research, and if I thought we could get something out of a movie, we did. We went and we watched it, and as soon as we got done, we were in the car, we were driving home, we were talking. The first 3 to 4 months of me implementing that new procedure was like pulling teeth to get my children to talk. It was like pulling teeth. Ah! And after that, they were catching stuff that I didn't catch. You got to set new patterns. It's no fun to begin with, all right? But you got to set new patterns. So if we're going to watch, we're talking. And that just then that just becomes who you are. That's what we do. That's who we are. So it's not just a movie. It's a tool. Why can't you use it? Why can't you use what they're teaching to say, this is what they're saying, this is what we see? Which one is it consistent with? God's word, man's opinion. I offer it to you as a tool.